Just 30 minutes focused on this content, and you'll gain an astonishingly sharp intellect. I'm not referring to the kind of erudition gained solely from books, nor is it the intelligence honed in academic settings. I'm talking about a form of intelligence that makes others cautious whenever you appear. It's the intelligence that helps you see through the true nature of others' actions, beyond their superficial words. An intellect through which you will never again be deceived, manipulated, or controlled. Most people go through life in a hazy state, lacking true awareness. They accept what is presented on the surface without question. They place their trust in the words others convey. They imagine the world operates exactly according to the patterns they've been taught. They spend decades confused, wondering why things don't turn out as expected. However, the reason is incredibly simple. They are missing 7 essential pieces of information. 7 shifts in thinking will help you see everything through a new lens. Once these transformations occur in your mind, you will become a completely new person. You will discover patterns that others often overlook. You will be able to predict outcomes that others cannot imagine. You will grasp motives that others are completely unaware of. And this will make you formidable, but not in a violent way. Formidable in the sense that you cannot be taken advantage of by anyone. You will no longer be caught in the psychological traps that the majority easily fall into, nor can you be manipulated by familiar ploys. Those who exploit others will despise this truth, because you will have become too perceptive, simply because their tactics will be utterly useless against you. However, before we delve deeper, I must issue a serious warning. These 7 shifts in perception will be permanent. Once you have fully grasped what I'm about to reveal, you won't be able to pretend you never knew. Innocence will abandon you forever. You won't be able to deny how this world truly operates. But this enlightenment comes at a cost. You might find yourself feeling more alone. You will realize you're communicating in a language entirely different from the majority. You will witness harsh truths, and you won't be able to turn a blind eye. Therefore, if you wish to preserve your innocence, if you still want to believe that human nature is inherently good and this world is fundamentally fair, stop immediately. Return to your everyday life. But if you yearn to see through the truth, if you are willing to understand the true rules of life, then continue watching. Because in just the next 30 minutes, your mindset will be completely rewired. And by the end, you will possess a mind so sharp, it's almost frightening. Let's explore the first transformation together. This is the foundational cornerstone. All other perceptions are built upon it. And this is also the truth that the majority resist most fiercely, because it shatters a belief they stubbornly cling to. That truth is, people do not always tell the truth. Let's consider an obvious truth. Actions often don't align with words. And I'm not suggesting that all those people are liars. My point is that words, by their very nature, are the poorest indicator of what an individual truly thinks, feels, or intends to do. They are simply a form of expression. Words are the tools people use to shape your perception of them. They are often spoken to achieve immediate aims, but rarely reflect a deeper truth. Think about the countless times you've heard someone promise to do something, only for their actions to be completely opposite. How many instances has someone declared deep interest, only to completely vanish from your life? And how many times has someone pledged to fundamentally change themselves, yet nothing changed? Were they deliberately trying to deceive you? That's possible. But it's more likely that at the moment they spoke, they genuinely meant it. They truly felt it in that very moment, with sincerity. However, once that moment passed, the feelings gradually faded, and so the promises became completely hollow, losing all value. Because words are inherently cheap, they demand no price or effort. People can utter anything, can make any promise without a second thought. And most of humanity acts this way. They say things that make themselves appear good, reliable, or to achieve personal goals, their own interests, or to make others stop bothering or annoying them. Even Niccolo Machiavelli, the brilliant thinker, deeply understood this harsh truth. A great thinker, half a millennium ago, profoundly observed that human nature is, at its core, quite easy to understand. They are easily swayed by immediate desires, by the demands of the present moment. And an undeniable truth is, con artists will never be short of willing victims. This implies that people have an innate desire to believe what is said. They want to put their faith in commitments, in promises. They long to believe that when someone speaks, it is their true intention. And manipulators, they understand this psychological principle well. That's why they cleverly use words as a tool to influence you. They will say the things you desperately want to hear. They offer hollow commitments, promises they themselves have no intention of fulfilling. And sadly, this strategy proves to be incredibly effective. The reason is that most of us tend to believe words automatically, taking them at face value. Most people assume that if something has been said, the speaker must surely mean it. But in reality, the world doesn't work according to that simple logic. So, what will truly transform when you dare to take this first step of change? You will no longer be carried away by the empty words others speak. Instead, you start to focus on observing their actual behavior. You will no longer be easily captivated by dazzling promises. Instead, you start to shrewdly recognize recurring behavioral patterns. For instance, when someone states they will call you back, do they truly act on it? Some people claim to value you, but do their actions truly back up those words? Someone promises to change, but do they actually transform, or are they just empty promises of change? When you stop putting your faith in empty words, but instead focus on actual behavior, everything becomes clear, leaving no room for confusion. You'll no longer wonder why those who claim to care constantly cause harm. The truth will be staring you in the face. They don't care at all. Their words and actions are completely at odds, because behavior always reveals the truth. Yet this is a truth that most people tend to overlook. This very insight creates a breakthrough power for transformation. When you stop believing in mere words, manipulation becomes incredibly difficult. Because most manipulative tactics are carried out through language. They are promises, justifications, or elaborate excuses. It's how someone uses words to evade responsibility. And if you don't place your trust in words, all manipulation becomes ineffective. You simply need to observe behavioral patterns. Look at what they actually do. From there, you'll make decisions based on clear evidence. This is precisely what infuriates those who specialize in manipulation, because they've grown accustomed to others readily accepting all their excuses. They've grown accustomed to their words always holding sway. However, when confronted by someone who only trusts actions, all their power becomes meaningless. They can say whatever they like. Words hold no value. What you need to do is observe their actions, and their actions will reveal all the truths you need to grasp. This is the first principle of cognitive transformation. People often don't truly mean what they claim. Focus on behavior, not empty words. And once you truly comprehend this, when you stop believing anyone's words and start analyzing their behavioral patterns, you've taken the first step towards achieving a dangerously sharp wisdom. However, merely recognizing that people's words don't accurately reflect their intentions isn't the whole picture, because you'll still be left wondering about the true motives behind all their actions. Why do people make empty promises they never fulfill? Why do people's words and actions so frequently contradict each other? Why do people hurt the very ones they claim to love? And this brings us to the second principle of cognitive transformation, a truth that explains all human behavior. Once you see through this, a truth even harder to accept than the first principle, this marks the second cognitive transformation. Every individual acts in their own self-interest, without exception, absolutely no exceptions. And before you rush to object, before you start listing your own altruistic acts or those of people you know to be truly kind, listen to me explain in detail. Let's be clear about this. I am not claiming that humans are inherently evil, nor am I implying that they are completely indifferent to those around them. In fact, what I want to point out is that, deep within every personal decision, there is always a cold calculation. What's in it for me? Even when we witness generosity, kindness, or noble sacrifice, behind it, the individual always gains something from that action. It could be internal satisfaction, reputation building, avoiding guilt, or even establishing a bond. Always, without exception, there is an underlying motive. And let me emphasize, this is not a criticism. This is simply how human nature is wired to operate. The instinct for survival is deeply ingrained in our makeup, and to sustain life, prioritizing one's own needs is a fundamental principle. Even when we extend ourselves to help others, that action still, in some way, serves our own interests. It might reinforce personal values, enhance self-image, or even secure long-term benefits. Either way, it always serves us. And once you grasp this principle, once you truly see its nature clearly, all seemingly complex behaviors become perfectly logical. Human nature is no longer an unsolvable mystery. People become surprisingly predictable, provided you can identify their self-serving motives. You will be able to accurately predict their every move, without fail. Now, reflect on an individual in your life who has deeply disappointed you, who caused you sorrow, who chose their own interests over yours. Were you truly surprised? Or did you just feel hurt? Did you perhaps overestimate the extent of their concern for you, compared to reality? Now, go back in time and reanalyze that situation, but through a different lens, the lens of self-interest. What would have happened to them if they had prioritized choosing you? And conversely, what would they have had to sacrifice if they decided to put themselves first? When you complete this calculation, you will realize that their decision was entirely logical. Simply put, they made the most optimal choice, considering their personal interests. This is an immutable law. This behavior is universal. Your pain stems from the expectation that they will prioritize you. But what motivates them? What do they stand to gain? If there's no benefit for them, they obviously won't choose you. This isn't personal. It simply reflects the nature of human behavior. Machiavelli once observed that people only act virtuously when compelled by circumstances. He meant that people don't behave morally simply because morality itself holds inherent value for them. They only display morality when it serves their personal interest, when facing social pressure, when there's a legal risk, or when their reputation is at stake. However, in situations without oversight, clear consequences, and where they can evade accountability, most people will prioritize acting in their own self-interest rather than doing what's right. And this isn't proof of human wickedness. Rather, it's the reality that people are inherently human, and their nature always gravitates towards self-interest. This isn't a flaw. It's an inherent characteristic. It's simply the instinct for survival. So, what changes when you achieve this second enlightenment? You'll no longer be surprised by human nature, nor will you be hurt by acts of betrayal, because betrayal isn't personal. It's simply someone prioritizing their own interests over yours. And why shouldn't they? You'll no longer expect others to sacrifice for you, unless you've created enough value for them to deem it worthwhile. You'll no longer mistakenly believe that loyalty is a given. You'll realize that loyalty only endures when it benefits both parties, and as soon as it no longer serves one side, that bond will dissolve. This perspective might be seen as pessimistic, even negative, but in reality, it's simply an undeniable truth. When you apply this understanding, you'll make wiser decisions. You'll no longer place your trust in individuals who have no basis for it. You'll no longer be surprised to see others prioritize themselves. Instead, you'll start building relationships based on a mutual alignment of interests, rather than just vague expectations. Listen to this crucial point. Once you deeply understand that every individual, including yourself, operates from self-interest, you will no longer be burdened by guilt when putting yourself first. You will no longer have to justify your personal boundaries. You will also stop voluntarily sacrificing for those who never reciprocate that kindness. The reason is that you have understood that pursuing your own interests is not a sign of selfishness, but in fact, it is a survival instinct. Successful individuals, those who are rising powerfully, grasped this truth a long time ago. They don't sit there wondering why others don't appreciate their contributions. Instead, they make strategic decisions based on what benefits them, and they don't feel the need to justify it, because they know full well that everyone else is acting in the same way. They simply live true to that nature. This is the second paradigm shift. Everyone operates from self-interest. Once you see through this truth, human behavior will become easy to explain. Their actions will make perfect sense, and you will no longer have to wonder about the motives behind everything they do. However, merely grasping the principle of self-interest can still put you at a disadvantage, because you might tell yourself, all right, I'll simply work harder than anyone else. I'll outperform everyone, and I'll get what I truly deserve. And that very thought will lead us to the third paradigm shift, a truth that will completely shatter the fairy tale that you've been told since childhood. The moment you are stunned to realize, this entire game has been rigged. Once that truth becomes glaringly obvious, any belief in talent or justice will vanish, or any notion of fairness. This is precisely what I want to assert. What is called fairness is, in fact, just a myth for children. This world has never operated on the principle of fairness, and will never achieve true fairness. The people who truly achieve success are not necessarily the most talented or deserving. They are the ones who have understood how to win within an inherently unfair system. Just try to recall the times you've witnessed someone with inferior abilities being promoted, while a more talented individual was overlooked. Every time you witness someone succeed, thanks to their connections. While truly talented individuals are struggling, every time you notice diligence going unrewarded, while sheer luck is celebrated. Perhaps you once believed it was just an isolated incident, a mere coincidence, a blatant injustice, and believed that, ultimately, fairness would prevail. However, this is not an isolated case. In reality, this is an immutable law. The universe doesn't simply reward diligent effort, but it honors the power of leverage, the subtlety of timing, and the wisdom of being in the right place with the right people. Sometimes, it even rewards decisiveness, even ruthlessness, to seize what one desires. The philosopher Machiavelli deeply understood this truth. He once argued that the reality of life is vastly different from what we expect it to be, to the extent that anyone who rejects reality to pursue fanciful ideals will bring about their own ruin instead of preserving their own existence. His point was, if you insist on adhering to assumed rules about how things should be, instead of accepting and adapting to how they actually operate, failure is inevitable. Individuals who merely complain, saying, "This is unfair, this is wrong, things shouldn't be this way," will forever be trapped in stagnation because they are languishing, waiting for a fair world to simply come to them. They expect their abilities to be automatically recognized. They believe that mere diligence is enough for success. While these individuals are still immersed in waiting, others have already joined the real game, the game of strategic leverage, of networking, of seizing timing and opportunities, and sometimes even taking what they want without any permission. Ask yourself, how much precious energy have you wasted being indignant about injustice, about others achieving things that should have been yours, about a flawed system, or about how things should have happened differently? All that negative energy, all that anger and resentment, they are completely useless, unable to change anything. The way the world operates doesn't care whether you think it's unfair or not. It only favors those who understand how it actually works, not according to theories about how it should operate, but according to its true current nature. And as soon as you shift this mindset, when you stop expecting fairness and start facing reality, that's when you can truly begin to win. Because you will no longer shackle yourself with illusions about what should happen. You will no longer waste time adhering to rules that don't even exist. Let's discover the stark truth about what really delivers success. If you're still operating in the old ways, what will be different when you make this third shift? You'll have to stop expecting things to be inherently fair. You'll no longer hope your efforts will be automatically recognized. You'll abandon the notion that professional competence alone is sufficient. You'll grasp the importance of leverage. You need to be present. You need to build connections. You need to seize opportunities. And at times, you must be willing to take actions that others might perceive as unfair. Neither illegal nor unethical, but a smart strategy. Proactively asserting your accomplishments, instead of passively waiting for others to notice. Establishing relationships with decision makers, instead of merely believing that professional competence is sufficient. Choosing to leave a job that doesn't appreciate you, instead of endlessly hoping your dedication will be justly rewarded. Engaging in the real game that's being played, not the one you've conjured up in your imagination. And here's a truth rarely revealed to you. The individuals standing at the pinnacle. Look at those who hold wealth, power, and influence. They all understand one truth. This world is inherently unfair. They are always acutely aware of it, and this very awareness has helped them win. They don't play by fair rules. Instead, they operate by the laws of reality. Because reality is harsh. It rewards those who gain an advantage. It honors being in the right place, at the right time, with the right people. It also favors the ability to seize opportunities that others, too bound by principles, have missed. And you can sit there and complain about the unfairness. You can sit there and declare that things shouldn't be this way. Or you can accept that things simply are this way, and start playing the game that actually exists. Because complaining about unfairness changes nothing. But understanding how to win within an unfair system changes everything. That is the third turning point. Fairness is an illusion. This world rewards advantage. Timing and ruthlessness, not merit, are the deciding factors. Once you truly accept this truth, you will stop wasting energy on resentment and start using it to strategically position yourself. Stop wasting your energy on pointless complaints. Instead, channel that effort into building your own standing. However, even after grasping the world's inherent unfairness, you're still not truly prepared for what comes next. The truth is, your preparations are still inadequate for what's to come. Because you might tell yourself, all right, this world is inherently unfair, but at least everyone abides by the same basic rules. At the very least, we all operate under a common set of fundamental rules. In any case, we are all compelled to abide by legal regulations. At the very least, the limitations and constraints imposed on each person are the same. And this is where we reach the fourth turning point. A truth is about to be revealed to you. This world isn't just unfair. More surprisingly, different individuals are playing entirely separate games. In reality, everyone is operating under entirely different rules and pursuing distinct goals. The games are completely different. And here's the harsh truth. The rules are not applied equally to everyone. There are sets of rules for the masses, and simultaneously, different laws for the powerful elite. Specifically, those in power adhere to their own distinct set of rules. Clearly, they are not the same set of rules at all. Ordinary people are compelled to strictly adhere to all regulations. They must fully meet their tax obligations. They must arrive at the appointed time. They must maintain a polite demeanor and always ask for permission before acting. They are forced to follow procedures. Violating regulations means losing their jobs. Illegal acts will lead to detention. This system constantly imposes restrictions on the majority, yet those in power are exempt from such control. The elite frequently disregard the rules. They often cut corners, treating regulations lightly. They twist the laws, and their promises are just empty words. Yet, they remain unscathed. The reason is that laws are established to control the voiceless, not to be imposed upon those in power, certainly not to restrain the ruling class. Just recall all the scandals you've ever known. The wealthy often cheat on their tax declarations. Politicians frequently lie under oath. Business leaders ignore labor laws, so what ultimately happens to them? What's the outcome? Perhaps they just have to pay a small fine. That amount is negligible compared to the wealth they've accumulated. At most, a perfunctory warning. Or worse, no consequences whatsoever. The underlying reason is that this system was created to punish those who cannot afford good lawyers, those without connections, and those without the power to defend themselves. Let's face it, when you hold money, power, and key connections, rules suddenly become mere suggestions, limits that you can skillfully circumvent, things you can freely negotiate, things you can ignore as long as the reward outweighs the potential risk. Machiavelli once made it clear, a wise prince cannot and should not keep his word if doing so would harm himself, especially when the original reasons for that commitment no longer exist. What Machiavelli truly meant was, those who hold power do not abide by the rules. The moment those rules no longer serve their interests, they only follow rules when they benefit themselves, and they are willing to break them when doing so brings greater advantage. And more importantly, they have enough resources to escape any consequences. This is not a sinister conspiracy, nor a hidden secret. This is simply how power operates in this world. It is those who hold power who establish the rules, and they draft them in a way that binds everyone else. Meanwhile, they always skillfully create loopholes and exceptions for themselves. This is the inherent nature of every system, every society, every structure. So what changes when you make this fourth transformation? Simply put, you will stop disadvantaging yourself. By adhering to rules that those in power frequently disregard, you will no longer be the only one playing by the rules fairly. Imagine a game where you're the only one playing by all the rules. Then, you'll no longer believe that strictly adhering to every rule is the sole line separating you from the unscrupulous, because those who are truly succeeding, they don't blindly adhere to every single rule. Instead, they focus only on the rules that truly matter. Rules that carry clear and tangible consequences. As for the rules that are inconsequential, they are willing to bend or simply disregard them. This isn't a call to break the law. Rather, it's a reminder to stop being naive about the true nature of the game you're playing. It's time to shed your innocence about the true nature of this arena. Don't mistakenly believe that adhering to the rules makes you virtuous. In reality, it only makes you vulnerable to manipulation. And this is precisely the perilous aspect of this shift in perception. Once you grasp that rules aren't applied equally, you'll be confronted with a choice. You cannot avoid making this decision. Will you continue to adhere to the rules that are holding you back, while others are freely pushing boundaries? Or will you begin to think strategically, discerning which rules to follow and which can be flexibly adapted? Most people lack the courage to confront this dilemma. They yearn to cling to the belief that they are good people, and good people always follow all the rules. However, from Machiavelli's perspective, he would tell you this: good people often end up as losers in this game, not because there's anything inherently wrong with being good, but because adhering to rules that no one else follows is simply unwise. Let's face it, the rules aren't designed to create fairness or ensure justice. They are, in fact, tools to manipulate and control you. They exist to control you. Once you grasp this fundamental truth, you won't be able to blindly follow them as you once did. Once this truth is revealed, blind obedience will become an impossibility for you. You will no longer be able to revert to that unthinking submission. This marks the fourth shift in your understanding. Another undeniable truth is that regulations are not applied equally to all individuals. Those in power frequently break the rules without facing any repercussions. When you witness this, you'll realize that adhering to every rule is simply a voluntary act of accepting control. You will clearly perceive that complying with all regulations is merely a voluntary surrender to control. However, even after grasping that this game has different rules depending on the player, that still isn't enough to prepare you for the next turning point. It still hasn't fully equipped you to face the impending transformation. Because even if you've recognized that this world is rife with injustice and distorted rules, you might still place your trust in those closest to you. You might still believe you know who your true confidants are. You might still think you can distinguish allies from non-allies. And this is precisely what leads to the fifth turning point. A truth that will make you question every individual around you. And here's the crux of it. Your enemies are disguised as friends. Those who will harm you are not strangers. They are not obvious, easily identifiable adversaries. On the contrary, they are the very people who often smile at you, the ones who constantly claim they'll stand by your side, those who merely feign concern. Consider the fundamental nature of betrayal. An adversary cannot inflict true treachery upon you. Only those you've placed your absolute confidence in possess the capacity for such a wound. Observe those individuals who seek to exploit your resources, challenge your position, or erode your standing. Understanding this principle, they cultivate proximity, project an image of goodwill, and meticulously identify your vulnerabilities. They patiently await the optimal juncture. Subsequently, they execute their decisive action, leaving you utterly unprepared. The underlying reason, you mistakenly categorize them as allies. Reflect upon each instance where you experienced such an act of treachery. Each occasion, an individual you confided in ultimately reversed their allegiance. Prior to these events, were they overtly hostile? The evidence indicates otherwise. They presented themselves as companions, as professional associates. These were individuals who had directly benefited from your assistance, those in whom you placed your confidence, whom you assessed as unwavering in their loyalty. Yet, the empirical outcome, they were not. Your subsequent reaction was one of profound shock, stemming from a complete absence of foresight. However, a critical observation reveals the warning indicators were consistently present. Your perception was deliberately obstructed. You actively chose not to acknowledge them. To perceive these indicators would necessitate the uncomfortable admission that a trusted individual constituted an actual danger. The predominant human tendency, therefore, a preference for deliberate ignorance. But do we dare to face this harsh truth? However, blindness is never a protective shield. On the contrary, it turns you into a vulnerable target. The thinker Machiavelli once observed, and noted that human nature is sometimes so naive that a deceiver will always easily find those willing to be led. The core point he highlighted is the inherent human desire to trust. They yearn to believe that those around them, especially friends, are truly sincere. They long to be treated honestly. And it is precisely this psychological vulnerability that deceivers exploit. Therefore, they exploit your very trust to manipulate you. They approach skillfully, gathering your most intimate secrets. They uncover the core values you cherish. They analyze and identify your hidden weaknesses. And then, with all the information gathered, they will exploit it to usurp, compete unfairly, or even destroy you, all while maintaining a fake smile. They pretend to be close friends, because that is the perfect disguise to conceal their intentions. So, when you make this fifth cognitive shift, what will truly be different? You will no longer blindly trust someone just because of superficial kind gestures. You will no longer assume that a friendly smile equates to genuine support. Instead, you begin to focus on identifying behavioral patterns. Is that person genuinely happy for your success, or do they reveal signs of discomfort and jealousy? Does their support only appear when it requires no sacrifice? Or are they still willing to help even when it inconveniences them? Can you truly trust this person with your secrets? Or do they always reveal things that end up hurting you? Once you stop mistaking politeness for sincerity and start recognizing true loyalty, the real nature of people, whether they're genuine or just playing a part, becomes clear. Indeed, a significant majority of people are merely playing a role. This shift in perspective, however, presents its most challenging aspect. The stark realization dawns that genuine trust cannot be given to most people. This isn't always due to inherent malice, but rather the pervasive tendency for people to prioritize their own interests over yours when circumstances demand a choice. Many will present a pleasant demeanor while simultaneously competing against you. The friendship offered by most is conditional, lasting only until it requires a personal sacrifice from them. Upon this realization, you then exercise extreme discretion regarding whom you confide in, what details you share, and who is allowed into your inner circle. For you understand that closeness inherently carries risk. The greater the intimacy, the greater the potential for harm. And regrettably, few people truly deserve such a vulnerable position. Most are, in essence, friendly adversaries, presenting a pleasant facade while awaiting an opportune moment. This, then, constitutes the fifth profound shift in perspective. The recognition that your adversaries often masquerade as allies. Those most likely to commit treachery are precisely the people currently within your trusted circle. With this understanding, you exercise heightened vigilance concerning those you allow into your life. Yet, merely acknowledging the potential threat posed by those around you does not grant complete immunity. One might be tempted to believe, I shall simply maintain an unyielding resolve, project an image of invulnerability, and never show any sign of frailty. This leads us directly to the sixth critical realization, which concerns the inevitable consequences of revealing vulnerability. The truth here is unsparingly stark. It is this: vulnerability invariably attracts aggression. Thế giới thường rêu rao rằng việc phơi bày sự yếu đuối là một hành động dũng cảm, rằng việc bộc lộ những khó khăn sẽ khiến bạn trở nên chân thật hơn, và việc tìm kiếm sự hỗ trợ là một biểu hiện của sức mạnh. Trong một viễn cảnh lý tưởng, điều đó có thể đúng, nhưng thực tại chúng ta đang sống lại không hề hoàn hảo. Thế giới này đầy rẫy những kẻ cơ hội, và chúng tuyệt nhiên không hề tôn trọng sự yếu kém. Chúng sẽ khai thác triệt để điểm yếu đó. Khi bạn phơi bày sự yếu kém, bạn không hề tạo dựng được sự gắn kết. Thay vào đó, bạn đang tự biến mình thành một mục tiêu dễ dàng. Bạn đang vô tình tiết lộ những điểm yếu chí mạng, cung cấp cho họ thông tin cần thiết để làm tổn thương, thao túng hoặc kiểm soát bạn. Và một bộ phận không nhỏ, dù không phải tất cả, sẽ không ngần ngại sử dụng thông tin đó để chống lại bạn. Hãy hồi tưởng lại một khoảnh khắc, bạn từng chia sẻ nỗi sợ hãi hay sự bất an sâu kín với một người nào đó. Và rồi, trong một cuộc tranh cãi nảy lửa hoặc một thời điểm khó khăn, chính điều đó lại bị lợi dụng để công kích bạn. Họ biết rõ điều đó sẽ gây đau đớn, bởi chính bạn đã tiết lộ mức độ tổn thương của nó. Bạn đã tự tay trao cho họ vũ khí, đã chỉ rõ cho họ gót chân Achilles của mình, và họ đã cẩn thận lưu giữ thông tin đó, chờ đợi thời điểm thích hợp để sử dụng. Đây chính là hệ quả tất yếu khi bạn phơi bày sự yếu kém trước những đối tượng không đáng tin cậy. Sự chân thành của bạn biến thành đạn dược, sự cởi mở của bạn trở thành một lỗ hổng. Trong một thế giới đầy cạnh tranh, sự yếu đuối sẽ bị trừng phạt, không phải do bản chất xấu xa của con người, mà bởi họ là những sinh vật có tư duy chiến lược. Và nếu việc khai thác điểm yếu của bạn mang lại lợi thế, một bộ phận không nhỏ sẽ không ngần ngại thực hiện điều đó. Niccolo Machiavelli từng đúc kết rằng thà bị người khác e sợ còn hơn được yêu mến, nếu không thể có được cả hai. Điều ông muốn nhấn mạnh là con người thường tôn trọng sức mạnh hơn là sự yếu kém. Khi bạn khiến người khác e dè, khi họ nhận thức rõ rằng việc đối đầu với bạn sẽ phải gánh chịu hậu quả, họ sẽ đối xử với bạn một cách thận trọng. Họ sẽ cân nhắc kỹ lưỡng trước khi có ý định phản bội, và sẽ không dám thử thách giới hạn của bạn. Here's a fundamental truth. If others perceive you as feeble, unwilling to push back, or simply someone who tolerates abuse with a smile, they possess no incentive to treat you honorably. Vulnerability attracts contempt, encourages manipulation, and provokes aggression. While not universally true, a sufficient number of individuals operate this way, necessitating your vigilance. What exactly transforms once you adopt this sixth paradigm? You discontinue the habit of excessive disclosure. You refrain from broadcasting your difficulties to all. You abandon the quest for pity, recognizing that the majority are indifferent to your hardships. Their stance is either apathy or they're cataloging your disclosures for future leverage. You adopt a more reserved demeanor, confiding your challenges solely in those who have demonstrated trustworthiness with sensitive data. For the vast majority, such individuals constitute an exceptionally limited circle. You project resilience, demonstrate capability, and convey that antagonizing you carries significant repercussions. This isn't born of malice, but from the acute awareness that in an environment teeming with opportunists, appearing vulnerable guarantees exploitation. Let's examine how this manifests in real-world scenarios. You refrain from vocalizing workplace issues. Instead, you resolve them discreetly. You keep your vulnerabilities to yourself, addressing them in solitude. You avoid publicizing your setbacks, choosing instead to extract lessons from them without fanfare. For each instance of public vulnerability, you diminish your standing and reduce your perceived worth in the estimation of others. You empower rivals and inadvertently designate yourself as a mark. Those who achieve success and flourish grasp this principle. They maintain the confidentiality of their challenges, They project an image of resilience externally, not due to an absence of difficulties, but from the understanding that revealing their struggles poses a risk.
Hãy nhìn vào sự thật thứ 6 này. Một điều không thể chối cãi, sự yếu đuối chỉ là lời mời gọi cho những đòn tấn công. Thế giới này không hề ban thưởng cho sự dễ bị tổn thương. Thực tế, nó còn trừng phạt điều đó. Khi bạn thấu hiểu chân lý này, bạn sẽ cực kỳ thận trọng với những gì mình bộc lộ và với ai. Tuy nhiên, dù đã nắm rõ 6 sự chuyển đổi này, dù đã nhìn thấu cách thế giới vận hành, vẫn còn một bước ngoặt quan trọng khác. Nó là sự chuyển mình vĩ đại nhất, yếu tố kết nối tất cả những điều trên thành một thể thống nhất. Sự thay đổi này sẽ định đoạt liệu bạn sẽ mãi là nạn nhân của những quy luật khắc nghiệt này, hay sẽ biến chúng thành công cụ để giành chiến thắng. Và đây chính là điểm khác biệt cốt lõi giữa những người chỉ đơn thuần hiểu luật chơi và những người thực sự dấn thân vào cuộc chơi. Sự thật phũ phàng là bạn đã là một phần của trò chơi này, dù bạn có muốn hay không. Một số người lầm tưởng rằng khi họ từ chối nhập cuộc, từ chối xây dựng chiến lược, từ chối cạnh tranh, họ sẽ tự động đứng cao hơn mọi người. Họ tránh xa những chiêu trò bẩn thỉu, không hề thao túng, chỉ đơn thuần sống thật và mong rằng như vậy là đủ. Tuy nhiên, sự thật cay đắng là bạn vẫn đang ở trong cuộc chơi, bất kể bạn có lựa chọn nhập cuộc hay không. Trong khi đó, những người khác đang tích cực nhập cuộc, họ vạch ra chiến lược, định vị bản thân, xây dựng liên minh, làm suy yếu đối thủ và không ngừng nắm bắt cơ hội. Và nếu bạn không thực hiện những hành động đó, bạn không hề giữ thái độ trung lập như mình nghĩ. Bạn đang thất bại, bởi vì việc từ chối tham gia không đồng nghĩa với việc bạn được loại khỏi cuộc chơi. Điều đó chỉ khiến bạn trở thành một con tốt trên bàn cờ, chứ không phải là một kỳ thủ. Bây giờ, hãy hình dung về công sở của bạn. Theo bạn, những người được đề bạt có phải là những người chỉ biết cống hiến hết mình và mong chờ được chú ý? Hay họ là những người biết cách làm nổi bật công việc của mình, xây dựng mạng lưới với các nhà lãnh đạo, tự định vị để nắm bắt cơ hội và thực hiện các động thái chiến lược? Họ đang tham gia vào cuộc chơi. Nếu bạn không nhập cuộc, bạn sẽ là quân cờ trong ván cờ của họ. Bạn sẽ là người bị phớt lờ, người luôn ngỡ ngàng, người mãi thắc mắc vì sao mọi chuyện chẳng bao giờ suôn sẻ, dù bạn đã làm đúng tất cả. Bạn đã làm đúng mọi thứ, nhưng chỉ dựa trên những luật lệ mà bạn tự mình hình dung ra.
Let's clear up a misconception. This isn't the real game. The core rule of the game is simple. You must have a clear strategy, or you'll be exploited by others. What he aimed to convey is that you need to be equipped with two essential forms of intelligence. You must be able to grasp the entire dynamic of the game, clearly identifying traps, manipulative ploys, and hidden strategies. That is, the intelligence of the fox. And you need sufficient strength, decisiveness, and strategic prowess to never fall victim to those traps. That is the mettle of the lion. You can't just be smart or merely recognize what's happening. You must be ready to counter, to shape the game yourself, and to skillfully turn your opponent's own strategies against them. Because if you merely see through the game but refuse to participate, you'll still be a loser. You're simply failing consciously, with your eyes wide open. So, what truly changes when you take this seventh crucial step? You'll no longer deceive yourself into believing you're not in a fierce competition. You'll stop acting as if kindness and mere hard work are a sufficient strategy. You begin to act with clear intention and purpose. You begin to carefully consider how others perceive you, the relationships you're diligently building, and the opportunities you're actively positioning yourself to seize. You start playing chess, a game of intellect, while others are still fumbling with simple checkers. You're able to anticipate and calculate at least 3 moves ahead. You understand that every interaction, no matter how small, contributes to building and solidifying your position. To escape this hold, you must shed your passive attitude. You no longer sit idly, waiting for things to simply happen. Instead, you actively shape your own reality, not through aggression or pretense, but with a calculated and strategic approach. You grasp that you are part of a game, and in this game, there are always winners and losers. Refusing to play simply means you're choosing to lose. And this is the most fundamental aspect of this transformation. The moment you acknowledge you are a part of this game, you will no longer feel conflicted about employing tactics. You no longer believe that asserting yourself makes you a bad person. You no longer have to apologize for prioritizing yourself, because you've realized that everyone else is doing the same. They just don't openly admit it. They are still playing the game, but they pretend not to be involved. And that's what makes them liars. But you are truly playing this game. When you dare to face the truth about yourself, about what you are doing, you become a formidable force, because there is no longer any ambiguity. You don't contradict yourself. You see the whole situation clearly. You clearly identify every piece, every move, and from there, You make your own strategic decisions, based on what truly brings results, not on what you merely hope will succeed. That is the seventh turning point. You are in a game, whether you actively participate or not, and your refusal to participate in this game simply means you are being manipulated by others. Once you realize this, once you truly understand it, you cannot return to a passive state. You cannot continue to expect things to sort themselves out automatically. You must become a true player. You need to build a strategy. You must carefully consider the game you are playing and the way to win, because the only remaining option is to waste your entire life. Have you ever wondered why everyone around you seems to be moving forward while you're still stuck in the same spot? The reason is crystal clear. Like a law of physics, they've joined the game and you're still standing on the sidelines. The brutal truth is, this game doesn't favor those who shy away. It only honors and rewards those who truly excel. Now, you possess these 7 core principles. Let's review them one more time to engrave them deeply into your mind. Never trust empty words. Focus on concrete actions. Because every individual operates from self-interest, and that includes you. The concept of fairness is merely an illusion, a fairy tale. The harsh reality is, this world only favors those who know how to create and effectively wield leverage. It's an undeniable truth that rules are not applied equally to everyone. Those in power always find ways to bend or blatantly break them. Always be vigilant. Potential enemies often hide under the guise of friendship. Therefore, place your trust with extreme caution, as if you were testing a scientific hypothesis. Weakness is not a virtue. It's a direct invitation to attack. Therefore, always project inner strength and unwavering resilience. Whether you realize it or not, you are already part of this game. So, participate strategically and intelligently, never allowing yourself to be passive. In the brief minutes that just passed, these 7 profound insights have thoroughly reshaped your mindset. As a result, your perception of the world has shifted. The way you view people is no longer the same. And more importantly, you now see yourself through a completely new lens. Knowledge is a one-way street. You cannot return to your previous state of ignorance. Your innocence has vanished forever, irrecoverably. Prepare yourself for a truth. This profound knowledge will lead you to solitude. The reason is simple. When you observe the world around you, you'll realize that the vast majority still cannot see what you have come to understand. They are still lost in false illusions. They still believe that others' words are always truthful, without any hidden agenda. They still cling to a blind faith in the world's fairness. They still believe that simply following the rules is enough to achieve everything. They still haven't grasped the true nature of the relationships around them. They still mistakenly believe that showing weakness will foster connection, rather than invite exploitation. They still deny that they are part of this game of survival, and you won't be able to explain this to them, no matter how hard you try. The reason is simple. They aren't ready to face it. They don't want to accept the harsh truth. They only want to maintain their comfort zone. They would rather live in the illusion of fairy tales than confront the harsh reality. When you dare to awaken those who are slumbering, they will immediately brand you as cynical, or even pessimistic. They will view you as a defeatist. Because profound insight is often mistaken for negativity by those who stubbornly cling to their ignorance. But you are not pessimistic. You are simply someone who perceives reality objectively. You are not a cynic, but someone who possesses verified information. You are not bleak. Rather, you are a formidable presence. And becoming a formidable presence is precisely what you must achieve. For to be formidable means you cannot be deceived, you cannot be swayed, nor can you be controlled. You recognize the true nature of the game and understand its players. You see through the ploys, and now you face a pivotal choice. Will you use this understanding for self-preservation, or will you leverage it to achieve victory? Do you choose a defensive strategy or an offensive one? Do you merely evade the pitfalls, or will you construct your own traps? That decision rests entirely with you. However, what you cannot do is revert to a state of ignorance. The transformation has taken place. Your mind has been enlightened. Now, you possess an intellect so sharp it is formidable. Pay close attention, for this is the challenge I'm laying before you. At this very moment, reflect on the reality of your life. Imprint these 7 pivotal shifts deeply into your mind. Within your social circle, who speaks one way and acts another? Who consistently prioritizes their own self-interest above all else? Even while outwardly feigning concern and care for you, where in your life are you still fruitlessly waiting for a fairness that simply doesn't exist? What rules are you meticulously following, while others openly disregard them? Among those around you, who feigns friendship but is secretly your adversary? What vulnerabilities are you exposing that others are ruthlessly exploiting? What game have you refused to play, even though it's unfolding all around you and you are inherently a part of it? Introspect and provide the most truthful answers to these questions, for these answers will reveal the precise reasons for your current predicament and highlight the adjustments needed to achieve your desired goals. And if these 7 pivotal shifts have resonated with you, if your perception of the world has changed in just 30 minutes, leave a comment. I understand. Let's see how many here are ready to stop being pawns and become the masters of the chessboard. Let's see how many are willing to shed their naivety to become sharp and formidable. For this world doesn't need more simply good-natured souls. It needs individuals with profound insight, who grasp the true mechanics of how things work and possess the cunning to win. In a game already rigged against them from the outset, that is the essence of becoming acutely intelligent and formidable. If you've persevered until this moment, you've officially joined our ranks. Welcome to the ability to discern the true nature of all things. While this path may be solitary, the power it bestows is extraordinary. Don't miss out on the profound discoveries awaiting you. Continue watching the next video. You'll soon realize its importance isn't just mere information, but a crucial key to unlocking insights that will far surpass anything you've anticipated. Join me there as we delve deeper together.